Hello friends. Hello friends. Welcome back to today's class. So in the previous class we have started with your assembly language. We have went through what is the meaning of assembly language. We have studied how to write an assembly language, what is the basic syntax of an assembly language. So this is what we have seen in the previous class. What is an assembly language, why we should write an assembly language, that all has been covered. Then moving ahead, we have studied two important things. That is, if I want to write the assembly language, I should know the symbolic names, which we call them as mnemonics. So symbolic names are nothing but the mnemonics, and you should also know a set of rules, like where should be my source, where should be my destination, and what is the opcode, what are the operands. All these things you should know, and all these things have been discussed in detail in the previous class. So moving ahead, we also saw your assembler. Assembler is very much important, very much essential. We saw the meaning of assembler, the work of assembler, and the work of assembler is nothing but it takes the input from the user, which would be usually in the form of a source program. To give you the example of a source program, say for example, it would be an assembly language program. What are the assembly language program you write, that would be your input. Then your assembler, with the help of the databases, what it will do, it will be converting it into a machine language program. So this is what we have seen, like what is the work of your assembler. So moving ahead from the previous classes, what we'll be doing today is we'll see one very important thing, which is called as assembler directives. So today's lecture will focus on this, and as you all know, this assembly language, the use of this assembly language is vast, and maybe sometimes we feel why we are studying this assembly language when we already know your higher languages, like say for example we already know your C language or Python, all these things. But still, why we should study this assembly language? We need to study this assembly language to understand how your processor works. Like, to understand the basics of programming, this assembly language programming becomes very much essential. Now, whenever one more very major thing with your assembly language is that it allows the programmer to make the changes with the source program, and so that he can easily translate it into a object program. What we saw here in their assembler, the source program is being converted into an object program. So if I want to do this with the help of an assembler, then it is very much easy with the assembly language. That is what I meant. Okay. Now, another very important thing is whenever we write our program, it is very much essential and very much need to understand where our program is stored. Okay, like say for example, if I write a program, then there are n number of things involved with the program. Like say for example, if I am writing say for example, if I am writing, say move a comma r0. Say if I write this instruction move a comma r0, then there are various things involved in this instruction. What are the various things? One is this operand, one thing is this operand, the other thing is what now? Your operators. These are the two things. Apart from this, there is also data involved in it. What is the data? There is some data which is there in A, and that data we are trying to move in your R0, right? So when we write all these things, then there is the need arises wherein we need to allocate memory for this operand, say move, and for this operators, for this opcode, for this operands, and for the data which is there inside this operands. Okay, so that is done with the help of your assembler directives. What are the memory allocations and all those things are there, that will be done with the help of the assembler directives. That means what we need to do, we need to reserve some memory locations for all these operands and opcode. So this opcode and these operands, we need to reserve some memory locations. Okay, so if I want to reserve some memory locations, that is done with the help of this assembler directives. Very much essential and very much important. Like say for example, we have n number of applications which would be requiring the support of your assembler, right? Every application requires the support of your assembler. Without assembler, can we write any application? Without this help of this assembler, without the help of this assembler, can we write any applications? No, it is not possible, right? So that's why we always require the help of this assembler. Any application you can take. Okay. Then we will be requiring some commands which need to inform the assembler to do a specific task. Right. So what are the specific tasks then? The specific task is nothing but your move. Whatever the move instruction you are seeing here, it is a specific task. Now this task has to be told to the assembler. Then who is telling this task has to be done? Then we require some commands to tell these tasks. We require some commands, right? Then who are giving these commands? The next question arises is who are giving these commands. So these commands are given with the help of your assembler directives. Is that clear, friends? So I hope the things are clear. I mean, what are the things we need to look after with your, what are the uses of assembler directives? The first thing is what now? It tells us, it gives us what memory locations are to be allocated for your operand and opcode. So this is my opcode and this is my operand, right? That is the first thing. The next very important thing is it will guide your assembler. It will guide your assembler what operations are to be carried out to do a specific task, like to move A comma B. This is a specific task. So if I want to do this specific task, what are the commands involved? That is also being directed with the help of your assembler directives, right? So as you can see, the first point here, what it is telling you, it allows the programmer to specify other information needed to translate the source program. What is the other information we just now discussed? It is nothing but the commands. Whatever the task you are going to perform, the commands what are to be taken out, that is done with the help of this assembler directives. What memory has to be allocated, that is done with the help of this assembler directive. From where my data should start storing, that is done with the help of this assembler directive. So it is like a person who is working at a background. Say for example, you are creating a movie. The person you see on the screen is your hero and heroine, but at the back end there are n number of people who are working. That n number of people are nothing but your assembler directives, who is making a provision for your front end program to run. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now all of you know that your opcodes are nothing but they are also called as pseudocodes, right? Now let us consider a simple statement. So this statement, what it is saying, sum EQU 200. It means that sum equal to 200. So what is the meaning of this? The meaning is nothing but the sum is what here? Memory location. The sum memory location is EQU is nothing but it denotes as equal to 200. That means the memory location sum is equal to the value 200. It is storing a value 200. Okay. Now, say for example, this EQU you are seeing for the first time. This EQU you are seeing for the first time. This is nothing but one of the assembler directive. It is one of the assembler directive. And what is the purpose of this EQ? The same statement can also be written without the help of this EQ. That is, I will scratch out this EQ, then I can only write sum 200. Then, why should I use this EQ? For a simple reason, please concentrate, for a simple reason. Say, sum 200 is arriving somewhere around 4 times in your code. 4 times in your program, and you want to change the value of this 200. Like in the first, when you execute for the first time, you require 200. When your friend is trying to execute, you require some 400. Okay. In that case, if I want to change this value of 200, then every statement, like all the 4 statements, in all 4 places, you need to go and change the value of this 200. This is the case when there is no assembler directive EQU. Now assume there is assembler directive. Let us assume that you have a assembler directive, you have this statement sum EQ 200. In that case, say for example, I want to change this 200 to 400. Now I want to change this 200 to 400. Then if I simply change the value here, instead of 200, if I simply write 400 here in one statement, it will be replicated in all the 4 places. Wherever n number of times you write this sum equal to n number of times you use this sum equal to 200 in your code, everywhere it will be replaced with the value of 400. So that is the advantage of your assembler directive. one advantage. Okay, so I hope so this is clear. So it means that the 200 value is automatically updated in all the values. That is the major advantage of your EQU. Okay friends, so I hope so this statement is clear. Moving ahead, another very major thing is it will not appear in the object code. Whatever the assembler directive is there, that will not be appearing in your object code. That is, say for example, if I write a program, then that will not be, what is the, where you get the object code? If you see the previous slide, where you get the object code? Object code is obtained at the output of your assembler here, at the output of your assembler, right? So when you convert your assembly level language, into your output, that is target program, which we call it as object code here, then all your statements will be converted. Like say for example, if I write move r0 comma sum, that will be converted into some statement. Say if I write add a comma b, that will be converted. Now when I write some EQU 200, in that case this EQU will not be converted into object code, only your sum and 200 will be converted into object code. So I hope this is clear. It means that the assembler directive statements will not be converted into the object codes. They are just for the implementation purpose. That's why sometimes we also call them as pseudo opcodes or pseudocodes. These assembler directives are sometimes called as pseudo opcodes or pseudocodes. So remember friends, in exam you may get a question saying that explain pseudo opcodes. In that case you need to explain this assembler directives. Okay, so this last point has been already covered. So it simply informs assembler that the name sum equals should be replaced by the value of 200 everywhere. Wherever you have written sum 200, wherever you have used the value sum 200, everywhere it will be replaced by the value. Say for example, I took it as 400. Okay, so moving ahead, let us try to see one simple example wherein we'll trying to add n numbers. The same example, you have already seen this example n number of times. Here again we'll try to add n numbers, but only small change here. What we'll do is we'll try to see how your assembler directive looks. We'll try to see how your assembler directive looks. I hope so this diagram you are familiar already. You can see here move n comma r0, you are moving the count to r0, then you are moving the number to r2. All those things we'll be seeing in detail just now. You might have also seen this as well, y100 to direct 104, y104 to direct 108, because each is 4 bytes, right? So we'll move ahead with the code here. So if you observe the code here, this part, whatever you have seen, this part is very similar and you have already seen it n number of times. Some 2 or 3 times you have seen this program, I guess, right? One small change is what now? This assembler directive part we have not seen. This is the first time you are seeing these parts. So this will be available, but you cannot, this is not executed by the assembler. As I told you, it will not be converted into object code. Okay. Now, we'll try to debug this program. One more very important thing. What are the things your assembler should require to convert a program into object program? That is very much essential now to understand. Like say for example, what is happening here in this diagram, in the assembler diagram? In the assembler diagram, what is happening? You are converting your source into object, right? So what are things your assembler requires? Any idea? It requires, first thing is it should know your, say for example, I write a code. Say for example, I write some code, something like this, sum EQ to 200, right? Then the first thing it should know is what are the instructions or what are the opcodes. So here opcode is what now? Your sum. It should understand that it is an opcode. The assembler should understand, right? Next very important thing is, this is my instruction, right? This whole thing is my instruction. Then comes your problem with the memory. Now we will be dealing with the memory, right? So when we deal with your memory, we should understand where I should store my whole data. Like this whole instruction has to be stored in one part of the memory, right? Apart from this, what else we have? This whole instruction is one thing. Apart from this, we also have our operands. What are the operands? In this case, it is just 200. So this 200 also has to be stored in your memory, and this will be stored in some other place. It should not overlap with wherever we have stored our instruction. So therefore, your assembler should understand three things. Which are the three things? One thing is it should understand these are my opcodes. The first thing, this is my first thing. The next thing is it should allocate some memory to store this instruction. The third thing is it should also allocate some memory to store this operand. Right? So these three things your assembler should understand. And who are telling these three things to your assembler? Your assembler directives. Okay, which goes something like this. Right? So let us see to the first statement. It is saying that sum EQU 200. It means that the equate directive, whatever your EQ you can see here, it is nothing but it is equate directive, and it is equaling the value of sum to the value of 200. And I already told you the significance of this EQU. Then next thing. So we have addressed the one issue. The next thing is we are written here origin 204. It means that your program starts allocating memory from the location 204. That means it is taking the value of from 204. You will be starting to store your program. That's why we have used here keyword. It is origin. That means from here the data gets blocked. From this memory area the data starts to block. Okay. Now next thing, we have written data word 100. It means that we are loading a value n into the location 204. Right. So what is this n now? N is nothing but your from the value how many times you need to add, that has been loaded where now? Inside your 204. I hope these three things are clear. So what all did we do now? We are equating your sum to 200 first thing. Then what we did do? We started from where we need to start our program. It is from origin 204. Okay. Yeah, one second. Yeah, from origin 204. Next we have taken the data word, that is how many locations we need to add, which is 100. Then we have reserved the memory location up till 400. So the reserve keyword is telling us that we have to reserve the memory location up till 400. Okay. Then going ahead, we will be starting. So after reserve, the next important directive is origin 100. So what is this origin 100 telling us now? See, the origin 100 is telling us that the instructions of the program are starting at 100. So as I told you, you need to store two memory locations. The one memory location is from where your program is starting. The other memory location is where from your instructions are starting. So from 204 you have started your program. From 100 your instructions have started. From 100 your instruction starts to get stored. Okay friends. So the rest of the things are similar. So move n comma r0. R1 is nothing but you will be moving the value of n into r1. What is n? N is already you have mentioned here 100. Move hash num1 comma r2 is nothing but you will be taking a number 1 which is stored at some 400 memory location, that will be moving into r2. So clearing the r0. The contents of r2 will be moved to r0. Then add hash comma 4 r2. You already know, if you observe this diagram, you will be easily coming to know that y plus 4 everywhere, because each instruction is taking your 4 bytes of memory. Then decrement r1, because every time when you add, what you should do, you should go on reducing this 100 will be reduced to 99, 98 and so on. Then back to this instruction, add. Finally you will be moving the contents of r0 to contents of sum to r0. Okay, so this is how your main program is there. This is how your assembler directives are. Finally, at the end, you have another two assembler directives, which is return and end. So the end assembler directive, what it tells to the assembler is that this is the end of the source code, and wherein from here the execution has to begin. Whenever you want to begin the execution, you will be writing this start. Okay friends, so if I write this start, it means that from here the execution will begin, and the meaning of end is nothing but here the source code is over. Okay, then what is this return? There is one more statement called as return here. It identifies the point where the execution of the program should be terminated. Here the execution stops, here the program stops, and here the start is telling us that from here the new program will be starting. Okay, so this is all about your assembler directives. Fine. Next very important thing we have is something called as number notation. As you already know this number notation, I will not debug much into it. So I hope you remember, whenever I write hash 75, it means that this 75 is treated as a decimal number, right?